Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel. So if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our new show, This Week in Israel, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed. At daybreak this morning, Israelis woke up to find the standoff between police and protesters still going on at the illegal Amona outpost. Most of the controversial evacuation was completed by midnight, with the exception of a large group of settlers and their supporters who barricaded themselves inside the synagogue. Police are hoping the resistors will leave peacefully out of respect for the holy site. At least 800 other demonstrators were forcibly cleared from the hilltop enclave, but between 60 to 100 people entered the house of worship. They sealed off with wooden boards. Most are believed to be young anti-evacuation activists and not residents of Amona. 40 families living in the West Bank outpost were under court order to leave after ruling it was built on Palestinian land. There were several light clashes during the operation, with protesters throwing bleach, bottles, and rocks at security forces. This update came about halfway through the evacuation.
Until now, the Israeli police have evacuated more than 20 buildings in and around the Amona area. More than 3,000 police officers involved in the operation, both including border police and riot police. 14 police officers have been injured from stones and liquids that have been thrown at them. And we're continuing to work carefully and cautiously in order to prevent any further injuries. No doubt the operation will continue.
At least 18 border patrol officers, IDF soldiers, and residents were treated for injuries, mostly to their eyes or skin, although some suffered hypothermia from the cold winter temperatures. The entire Amona issue caused serious tension within Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition, which somewhat let up after the premier backed a bill to retroactively legalize dozens of other outposts. The new legislation doesn't apply to Amona, however, because of the existing court decision. As a contentious evacuation of Amona continues, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is assuring the evicted residents that they'll be able to rebuild their homes at a brand new settlement. That announcement angered Palestinians who are demanding all of Judea and Samaria, as well as parts of Jerusalem, for their future state. Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat is blasting the Israeli government over the plans for any new settlements, as well as a recent approval of another 3,000 homes in the disputed territory that was declared earlier this week.
The Israeli government balance is very awkward. They are evacuating 40 settlement homes in Amona and compensating the illegal settlers with 3,000 housing settlement units. This is political blindness. This is arrogance of powers. And as I said, the only venue to react to this is the International Criminal Court.
One Palestinian, identifying himself as one of the owners of the land on which Amona was founded in 1995, voiced his own concerns while watching the Jewish outpost be dismantled.
احنا هذا الاشي اللي ننتظر فيه من مدة أكثر من 20 عام. عمالنا ننتظر في هذا اليوم اللي هو فعلا إذا بتم الإخلاء. فإحنا زي ما شايفين هلا وبجوز شفتوا معاي إنه عمالهم بحاولوا يخلوا الأهالي، بس إنهم عمالهم بهربوا هيهم فيها جبال والجيش والشرطة عمالها بتطاردهم تيخلوا المستوطنين نفسهم. وإن شاء الله اللي بيتم إخلاءها وترجع أراضينا زي ما كانت في الأول، وهذا حلمنا إحنا اللي نتمناه. إحنا هذا اللي متخوفينه، إنه إذا أخلوا المستوطنين إنه الجيش يقوم بالاستيلاء على هذه النقطة، لأنها منطقة استراتيجية وعالية زي ما شايفين، ويعملوها نقطة عسكرية تكون.
A settlement for the 330 Amona residents will be the first new one to be built in a quarter of a century. The latest Israeli construction plan is a fourth to be declared since U.S. President Donald Trump took office. So far, there has been no word over the addition of at least 6,000 new homes in the West Bank and Jerusalem from Washington, in stark contrast to the vocal condemnation heard from the former Obama administration. Meanwhile, Israel's going to build another 3,000 new homes over the 1967 lines, and unlike the past 8 years, there's been no reaction from the United States. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman is describing the recent spike in approved construction projects as a return to normal life in the West Bank and the provision of real solutions to housing and living needs.
חזרה לחיים נורמליים היא בשורה, ואנחנו במקביל גם נפתח את התשתיות וכבישים, וגם נפתח ונוסיף הרבה מרכיבי ביטחון. ביחד זה אמור לתת מציאות הרבה יותר טובה.
The newest plan comes just a week after the greenlighting of another 566 housing units in East Jerusalem and 2,500 other homes in Jewish areas of the West Bank. Some are even outside the settlement blocks Israel's hoping to keep, even if a peace accord is ever signed with the Palestinians. Some political analysts are saying the sudden surge in building is part of government attempts to dispel anger over the Amona evacuation, as well as due to the more tolerant new administration in the White House. U.S. President Donald Trump has even appointed a prominent supporter of building in the West Bank as his ambassador to Israel, and a delegation of settler leaders was invited to attend his inauguration. Unlike his predecessor Barack Obama, who vocally condemned settlement expansion, there has been nothing but silence from Washington over the flurry of Israeli building plans announced since he took office. The Palestinians are accusing Trump of actively encouraging the construction they insist are damaging the chances of a two-state solution.
Israeli diplomats are continuing their efforts to smooth over discord with Mexico that erupted when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to praise from U.S. President Trump about the effectiveness of Israel's barrier on the Egyptian border.
Netanyahu says he only spoke the truth about Israel's efforts to stop illegal infiltration and that his comments had nothing to do with Mexico. But the remarks the premier made in a tweet are being perceived by many as an endorsement of the wall Trump wants to build on the U.S.-Mexican border. And that's not only sparking a diplomatic rift, but also a reported surge of anti-Semitic messages on social media in Mexico. There have also been official calls for a public apology from Israel.
Hemos tenido muchos gestos de amistad con el pueblo israelita. Es absolutamente incomprensible que su primer ministro lleve a cabo una expresión de este tipo, que la consideramos francamente una agresión. Todos sabemos en México que cuando se habla de un muro de Trump, está hablando de un muro con México. Aunque no lo diga el tuit del primer ministro Netanyahu, nos parece que el primer ministro debe tratar a México como lo que es, como un país amigo.
As part of further efforts to improve relations, Israeli President Reuven Rivlin will be speaking with his Mexican counterpart later today. This follows a round of talks between Israel's ambassador to Mexico and the country's deputy foreign minister yesterday, as other members of the diplomatic corps emphasize that the premier never meant to disparage Mexico in any way. One spokesman is stressing the comments were only referring to Israel's specific security experience, which it's willing to share. And for his part, the Israeli prime minister continues to underscore his belief that the entire incident is just a misunderstanding that will not have any impact whatsoever on bilateral relations with Mexico.
I take this opportunity to explain or clarify what I did and did not say in my tweet the other night. I thought you'd be interested in that. I did point out the remarkable success of Israel's security fence, but I did not comment about U.S.-Mexico relations. We've had and will continue to have good relations with Mexico, and I believe our ties are much stronger than any passing disagreement or misunderstanding. And in fact, I've had a long and fruitful and very friendly relationship with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, and it will continue.
Proponents of the U.S. Embassy move to Jerusalem are a little more than disheartened today after U.S. President Donald Trump continues to roll his campaign pledge back even further away from becoming reality.
The new American leader's now saying that the relocation he so ardently vowed to make as soon as he entered the White House isn't easy. Even more startling, he's now saying that even though he still likes the concept, there's only a chance of it happening. While it doesn't appear he's entirely ruled out the possibility, Trump says it's a big decision and is suddenly indicating that he now realizes that the matter has two sides. He also says the embassy move is being studied, even though that's not like him, because he usually does what's right. He then made direct references to the 35 times his predecessors in office signed waivers of the 1995 Jerusalem Embassy Act to delay the move ordered by Congress, and says he'll be making his decision in the not-too-distant future. Trump's latest views were expressed in a CBN interview right after U.S. Vice President Mike Pence discussed the matter with Jordan's King Abdullah. Amman sides with the Palestinians and most of the Arab world opposing any such relocation and has warned it could result in catastrophic diplomatic repercussions as well as possible violence. As a side note, the current waiver on the law to move the embassy from Tel Aviv expires in May of 2017, so we'll all know what Trump decides to do at least by that time, if not sooner.
Well, even if the Israeli government may feel like it's being bound by a diplomatic gag, the Israeli people certainly don't. Lots of locals aren't letting anything get in the way of voicing their opposition to Trump's immigration ban.
Protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv to condemn U.S. President Trump's order. They also took the opportunity to slam Israel's own policies against the illegal migration of Africans into the Jewish state.
We're standing here protesting in front of the American Embassy in Tel Aviv on behalf of migrants, immigrants, and refugees in America, Israel, and all over the world against Trump's anti-refugee policies, together with Bibi's anti-refugee policies.
The activists waved signs reading "Refugees and immigrants welcome," "Dump Trump, dump Bibi," and "No ban, no walls." Another called on passing cars to honk if you love refugees, to which many drivers responded. The protesters also cited the Jewish history of being slaves and refugees themselves by citing the biblical passage, "For you were strangers in the land of Egypt." One Israeli American told reporters that as a Jew, he's upset over policies that lack morality. Another rally was held in the Israeli capital in Jerusalem, near the Prime Minister's residence and the American consulate. While those gathered stressed that no one takes security and fighting terror more seriously than Israel, they're advocating a more humanitarian approach spotlighting Jewish ethics.
Now here's a frightening report. Senior Israeli military officials are reporting that the Hamas terror group has successfully restored their military strength to what it once was before the 2014 war in Gaza.
That war, known as Operation Protective Edge by Israel, destroyed most of Hamas's military arsenal and infrastructure. For the last 2.5 years, the de facto ruling power in the Gaza Strip has sought to rebuild its military capabilities by compiling thousands of missiles, small arms, and even rebuilding a network of tunnels into Israel. Now, a report from Israel's Channel 2 News claims much of Hamas's arsenal has been restored using makeshift materials found in the Gaza Strip itself. Even more concerning is a possibility that a restoration of ties between Hamas and Egypt could lead to the full opening of the Rafah border crossing from Gaza to the Sinai. If this were to take place, Hamas could import even more materials to build up its military capabilities. On Tuesday, the Islamist terror group showed off its military hardware at a memorial rally in the Gaza Strip, declaring Israel will suffer the consequences for the alleged assassination of a key Hamas weapons builder in Tunisia last December. Israel has made no official comment on the death of Mohammed Zouari. The shocking report into Hamas's strengthened war capabilities comes just after the release of a government report stating that Israel's top-level ministers failed to properly handle the conflict with Hamas in 2014. The report claims that both the Israeli Prime Minister and Defense Minister failed to inform the Security Cabinet of the true extent of the threat to Israel, emanating from the terror group's cross-border tunnels.
The UN Security Council is convening for an urgent session today as the Israeli government is voicing alarm over Iran's brazen test firing of a ballistic missile on January 29th.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is extremely concerned over Tehran's show of force and has announced his hope that this flagrant breach of Security Council Resolution 2231 will push U.S. President Donald Trump into renewing sanctions against the Islamic Republic. That resolution was put in place as part of the 2015 nuclear deal, calling on Iran to end all activity related to ballistic missiles designed to be capable of delivering nuclear weapons. Today's emergency consultations in the UN were requested by the United States after Israel's UN ambassador called for immediate action in response to the Iranian aggression he says endanger not only Israel but the entire Middle East. Prime Minister Netanyahu also declared that the issue will top the agenda of his upcoming summit in Washington with Trump on February 15th. U.S. President Trump has promised to strengthen ties with Israel and has been sharply critical of the nuclear deal with Iran that led to the lifting of international sanctions. Almost every day we hear new allegations of cyber hacking going on across the world, and almost no one seems truly immune. Israel's setting out to offset that risk by creating what it's referring to as the digital equivalent of the Iron Dome. The new Israeli plan to defend government, public, and even private institutions is taking its inspiration from the outstanding success witnessed by the Iron Dome missile defense system. During the Jewish state's last war in 2014 with Hamas terrorists in Gaza, the system was proven as a highly effective means to intercept incoming rockets, targeting Israel's civilian population. According to the nation's most eminent cyber chief, the new cyber defense shield is being assembled by a number of systems. Some are still in the research and development phase and being advanced by experts in both the government and private sectors, although others are already operational. That includes the nation's newly installed pilot project called the CyberNet. It works by connecting the National Computer Emergency Response Team with the cyber defense groups working at public and private economic organizations, so any information about imminent cyber attacks can be immediately shared and thwarted. Sadly, the number of Jews who managed to survive the Holocaust is now dwindling as they advance in age, but several former inmates of Auschwitz death camp were able to make their way to Poland for this year's commemoration of International Remembrance Day. Those gathered in the camp listened to the testimonies of Jewish victims who say that to this day they still carry the wounds inflicted on them by Nazi Germany and its collaborators.
A w Izraelu lato jest długie i krótkie rękawy się nosi i ten numer był zawsze widoczny. To mnie dzieci pytały, a dlaczego masz napisane na ręku? Kto ci napisał? Pisze się przecież na papierze. No i wtedy musiałam coś powiedzieć, co to jest obóz koncentracyjny, wytłumaczyć prostymi słowami.
Another Auschwitz survivor brought to the death camp at the age of 12 says he had to undergo disinfection inside the very same building where the service was taking place.
Ja się nie czuję tutaj gościem honorowym. Ja tu się czuję zawsze byłym więźniem albo więźniem. Bo ja jak idę tym korytarzem wśród, tak jak teraz wchodziliśmy, to ja idę dalej goły. Tak jak wtedy, bo to jest w mojej pamięci. Nie tylko w mojej. To tak rozmawiam z koleżankami i kolegami z Birkenau. My wszyscy jesteśmy naznaczeni do śmierci prawdopodobnie tymi okropnymi przeżyciami.
Between 1940 and 1945, Nazi occupation forces gassed, shot, or hung more than 1 million people at the Auschwitz-Birkenau complex. Others died of neglect, starvation, or disease before the Soviet Red Army liberated the camp in 1945. The vast majority of the victims were Jewish and targeted simply for their faith. This year's remembrance ceremony comes as anti-Semitism is again on the rise in Europe, which is driving efforts to make certain the world never forgets the horror that can result from such persecution.
Spotykamy się tutaj w 72. już rocznicę wyzwolenia KL Auschwitz. Każdego roku odchodzą ostatni świadkowie tego przemysłowego morderstwa, jakie odbywało się właśnie tutaj. Z upływem czasu musimy zacząć myśleć, jak zachować pamięć o II wojnie światowej i o zagładzie.
That message particularly resonates in Poland because about half of the 6 million Jews who perished during the Second World War had been living there before their deaths.
Now, here's some good news for at least 9% of Israel. Israel's now planning to join several U.S. states and European countries by decriminalizing personal marijuana use.
The proposal comes from Israeli Public Security Minister Gilad Erdan, who's advocating that anyone caught smoking pot would be fined and not arrested or prosecuted, and that criminal procedures would be initiated only against repeat offenders.
אנחנו מציגים כאן הבוקר בשורה אמיתית ומדיניות חדשה ומקיפה, ומדובר בעצם במדיניות משולבת שמצד אחד היא לא מוותרת לגמרי על מרכיב האכיפה הפלילית, אבל מצד שני היא בהחלט מעבירה את מרכז המדיניות, את מרכז הכובד, לתחום של החינוך, ההסברה והטיפול.
Marijuana use is believed to be fairly popular in Israel, with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime estimating that up to 9% of the population lights up once in a while. Apparently, the police have already relaxed their vigilance against the practice, and the latest data shows the enforcement against personal marijuana users has dropped by 30% since 2010. Only 188 people were arrested in 2015, reflecting a 56% drop from over 5 years ago. Erdogan's bill is likely to pass and go into effect within 3 months. Recreational use of the substance is now completely legal in 8 U.S. states and approved for medical research in 28. Israel's already a world leader in the field of medical cannabis, and about 10,000 residents have licenses to legally use the drug. That kind doesn't get you high, though. And now we think there are quite a few enthusiasts here in Israel already dusting off their Grateful Dead and Bob Marley albums in anticipation of a very happy springtime.
So-called unicorns have been popping up in Israel like crazy lately, and our business-minded viewers know that when we say that, we're not referring to the mythical flying horse with a horn, but startups worth at least $1 billion.
It's practically becoming one of the best challenges in the Jewish state to succeed in spotting which of the many companies is going to be the next to hit the financial stratosphere. The whole phenomena kicked off back in 2013 when Google snatched up the Israeli Waze navigation app, and it's been happening ever since. Some of the top contenders everyone has their eyes on are now listed on the No Camels Israeli Innovation News website. They include Zebra Medical Vision, the Israeli deep learning imaging analytics company that's been providing superior results in combating cancer and other life-threatening diseases. SciSense is on the potential path to Israeli unicornism by helping impressive clients like Motorola, General Electric, Target, and Lockheed Martin with its business intelligence and analytics software, which makes sense out of huge amounts of data ranging from manufacturing efficiency to inventory and sales numbers. Then there's the Israeli open source video platform called Kaltura, which just raised a whopping $50 million from the American investment bank Goldman Sachs this summer. Kaltura enhances websites with customized video and has a whole lot of other functionalities too. Other hot companies include SimilarWeb, which analyzes web traffic, MoveIt that provides real-time information on the fastest public transportation routes, and StoreDot, which is an Israeli startup that already makes a 30-second smartphone recharger and is developing a device that can power up batteries for electric vehicles in only 5 minutes. There are so many more exciting new companies, and now you can see why it's so fun to start looking for your own unicorns in Israel. And who knows, maybe spotting one can help you to fulfill all of your other dreams, especially if you decide to invest and become the next millionaire.
Moving on to some uplifting news, we have some great news for you travel junkies. One of the best things about living in Israel is location. In just a couple of hours, you can travel to Europe, Africa, and even Asia. The only problem is that the flights can be costly. Well, for those of you who want to travel as much as you can without breaking the bank, there is finally a way.
Residents and visitors already in the Jewish state can hop on Ryanair flights between Tel Aviv and Eilat starting tonight at midnight for less than $22. And Ireland's low-cost carrier also just announced plans today for the opening of 19 far-ranging new routes starting in Israel. 7 will be taking off from the tarmac at Ben Gurion Airport near Tel Aviv, and 12 others from the Ovda airfield by the spectacular Red Sea resort city of Eilat. The exciting destinations include Brussels, Milan, Berlin, Frankfurt, and Baden-Baden in Germany, and several cities in Poland. Ryanair already operates flights from Ovda to 3 other European countries in addition to Poland: Hungary, Lithuania, and Slovakia. The latest bid for Israeli passengers is expected to escalate the price war that's already underway. The company says it will offer fares as low as $24 for one-way flights from Israel to Cyprus, beginning in March, and tickets to more distant European nations will start at just $43. The majority of Ryanair's new routes won't take to the skies until next November, but it's never too early to start dreaming and planning your next vacation.